The blood on her dress had long since dried to a rust-brown stain, but Beatrice Rainford could still smell the iron tang of it mixing with the dust and sweat that covered her skin like a second layer of clothing. She stumbled into Murphy's, California, on a Tuesday afternoon in late August of 1878, leading a lame horse and carrying nothing but the clothes on her back, and a determination that had somehow survived 12 months of sleeping on hard ground, in caves, under wagons, and once in a tree when a pack of wolves had circled below. The main street stretched before her like a mirage, wooden buildings shimmering in the heat that rose from the dirt road. Beatrice was 22 years old, though she felt ancient. Her honey-colored hair hung in matted tangles down her back, and her green eyes, once bright and full of dreams, had taken on the hard glint of someone who had learned that survival meant pushing past exhaustion, past fear, past everything except the next step forward. She had been running for exactly 365 days, running from the ranch where her father and brother had been murdered by claim jumpers, running from the men who had burned her home to the ground, running from the law that wouldn't help because the men who killed her family had connections, money, and a sheriff in their pocket. Running until her shoes had worn through, and she had stolen new ones from a general store 2 towns back, leaving what little money she had on the counter before fleeing into the night. The horse beside her, a gray mare she had found wandering loose near Sacramento, finally gave up and collapsed. Beatrice stood there for a moment, her hand still gripping the reins, before she let them drop. The animal was done. She understood the feeling. You cannot leave that animal in the middle of the street. The voice came from behind her, deep and rough like gravel being poured over velvet. Beatrice turned slowly, her hand instinctively moving to the knife she kept tucked in her boot. She had learned not to trust men with deep voices, or men in general. The cowboy stood about 6 feet tall, with shoulders broad enough to block out some of the punishing sun. He wore typical working clothes, dusty leather chaps over worn denim, a faded blue shirt, and a hat that had seen better days. But it was his face that caught her attention, not because it was handsome, though it was in a weathered, honest sort of way, but because his eyes held something she had not seen in a long time. Concern. Real, genuine concern, and not the predatory kind that made her sleep with one eye open. "I did not intend to leave her here," Beatrice said, her voice hoarse from lack of use. She collapsed. The cowboy moved past her, kneeling beside the horse with an ease that spoke of a lifetime around animals. His hands moved gently over the mare's legs, checking for breaks or injuries. "She is dehydrated and exhausted. When did she last drink?" Beatrice tried to remember. Yesterday, the day before. Time had become fluid, one day bleeding into the next in an endless cycle of moving, hiding, surviving. "I do not recall." He looked up at her then, really looked at her, and she saw the moment his assessment shifted from the horse to her. She knew what he saw. A woman who looked like she had been dragged behind a wagon for 100 miles, wearing a dress that had once been blue but was now closer to gray, with tears in the fabric and that damning bloodstain across the bodice. A woman who swayed on her feet like the next strong wind might knock her over. "When did you last drink?" he asked, his tone careful, like he was talking to a spooked animal. "This morning, from a creek about 5 miles back." It was a lie. The creek had been yesterday, and she had only managed a few handfuls before her stomach had cramped and she had to move on. The cowboy stood, his movements deliberate and slow. "My name is Vincent Wolfe. I work at the stable down the street. Let me help you with your horse, and then we can get you some water and food. I do not need charity." The words came out sharper than she intended, born from a year of learning that kindness always came with a price. "It is not charity." You look like you are about to fall over, and if you do, I will have 2 bodies in the street instead of 1 horse. Practical help, not charity." There was no judgment in his voice, no pity either, just a straightforward honesty that made something in her chest ache. Beatrice wanted to refuse. She had spent a year refusing help, keeping herself separate, untouchable, because attachments meant vulnerability and vulnerability meant death. But her legs were shaking, her vision was starting to blur at the edges, and she was so very tired. "All right," she whispered. Vincent whistled, sharp and loud, and 2 men emerged from the stable. He gave them quick instructions about the horse, speaking with the authority of someone who knew his business. Then he turned back to Beatrice and gestured down the street. "The boarding house is this way. Mrs. Chen runs it. She will have a room and a meal." Beatrice took a step forward and her knees buckled. Strong hands caught her before she hit the ground, and then Vincent was lifting her like she weighed nothing at all, cradling her against his chest. She should have fought. Every instinct screamed at her to fight, to run, to protect herself. But she was so tired, and his arms felt steady and safe, and just for a moment she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she could stop running. "I can walk," she said weakly. "I know you can. But you do not have to right now." His voice rumbled through his chest, and she could feel the vibration of it against her cheek. The boarding house was a 2-story building painted white with green shutters, one of the nicer structures in town. Vincent carried her up the steps and through the door, calling out as he entered, "Mrs. Chen, I have someone who needs help." A small woman appeared from a back room, her black hair streaked with gray and pulled into a neat bun. Her dark eyes took in the scene with quick intelligence, and she immediately began issuing orders. "Bring her upstairs. Second door on the right. I will bring water and food." The room Vincent carried her into was small but clean, with whitewashed walls, a simple dresser, and in the center a bed. A real bed with a mattress and pillows and blankets that looked soft enough to sink into. Beatrice stared at it like it was a treasure chest full of gold. "I have not slept in a real bed in a year," she said, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Vincent set her down gently on the edge of the mattress, and she felt the give of it beneath her, the promise of comfort. Her eyes filled with tears that she angrily blinked away. She did not cry. Crying was a luxury she could not afford. "You are safe here," Vincent said, crouching down so he was at eye level with her. "Mrs. Chen will take care of you. Rest, eat. No one will bother you." "You do not know that," Beatrice said. "You do not know what I am running from. No, I do not. But I know that everyone who comes to Murphy's is running from something. That is the nature of the West. We do not ask questions. We just help each other survive." He stood, moving toward the door. "Rest. I will check on your horse." After he left, Mrs. Chen returned with a tray holding a pitcher of water, a basin, clean cloths, and a plate of food that made Beatrice's stomach clench with hunger. Bread, cheese, cold chicken, and apple slices arranged with simple care. "You wash first," Mrs. Chen said, setting the tray on the dresser. "Then you eat. Then you sleep. Tomorrow we worry about everything else." "I do not have money for the room," Beatrice admitted, shame burning in her throat. Mrs. Chen waved a hand dismissively. "Vincent already paid. He said you will pay him back when you can. Now wash. You smell like you have been living with cattle." Despite everything, Beatrice almost smiled. She stripped off her ruined dress after Mrs. Chen left, washing away months of grime with hands that shook from exhaustion. The water in the basin turned murky brown, and she had to refill it twice from the pitcher before she felt even remotely clean. There was a nightgown laid out on the bed, simple white cotton that felt like silk against her raw skin. She ate mechanically, forcing herself to go slow even though she wanted to devour everything in sight. Too much food too fast after months of near starvation would only make her sick. Then, finally, she lay down on the bed, and it was everything she had dreamed about during those endless nights on hard ground. The mattress seemed to embrace her, the pillow cradled her head, and the blanket settled over her like a gentle weight. Beatrice Rainford closed her eyes and slept without nightmares for the first time in 365 days. She woke to afternoon light slanting through the window, confused about where she was until memory returned in a rush. The room, the bed, the cowboy with the kind eyes. She sat up slowly, her body aching but in a different way than before. This was the ache of muscles finally allowed to relax, not the constant tension of survival. There was a knock at the door, soft and tentative. "Miss, are you awake?" Mrs. Chen's voice. "Yes," Beatrice called, her voice stronger than it had been yesterday. The door opened and Mrs. Chen entered carrying another tray, this one loaded with breakfast, or perhaps dinner, given the angle of the sun. Behind her came Vincent, carrying a bundle of fabric. "You slept 16 hours, Mrs. Chen announced. "This is good. Your body needed it. I brought food. Vincent brought clothes." Beatrice looked at Vincent, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I asked around town for women who might have extra dresses. Mrs. Patterson's daughter moved east and left some things behind. She said you could have them." He set the bundle on the end of the bed, careful not to come too close. Beatrice appreciated that, the way he respected her space. "Thank you," she said. "I will pay you back. I will pay everyone back." "Eat first," Mrs. Chen said firmly. "Then you can worry about money and debt and whatever else troubles you. But first, food." Vincent excused himself, and Beatrice ate while Mrs. Chen bustled around the room, talking about the town, the people, the weather, never asking questions about where Beatrice had come from or what she was running from. It was only after the meal was finished, and Beatrice had changed into one of the borrowed dresses, a simple brown calico that fit reasonably well, that Mrs. Chen sat down on the room's single chair and looked at her seriously. "Vincent is a good man," she said without preamble. "One of the best I have known. He came to Murphy's 3 years ago, works hard, never causes trouble. He helps people, it is what he does, but you should know he gave up his own bed for you." Beatrice felt something cold settle in her stomach. "What do you mean, this room? It is his. He lives here, rents it monthly. When he brought you yesterday, he told me to give you his room and he would find somewhere else to sleep. He has been sleeping on the floor in the stable with the horses." "No," Beatrice stood abruptly. "No, he cannot do that. This is his room." "I will find somewhere else." Mrs. Chen held up a hand. "He will not take it back while you need it. I know this because I already argued with him. Very stubborn man. He said you needed a real bed more than he did. Would not hear any different." The weight of this kindness settled over Beatrice like a physical thing. A man she did not know had given up his own bed, his own comfort for her. It did not make sense. People did not do things like this without wanting something in return. But Mrs. Chen's eyes held no deception, and Beatrice's instincts, honed by a year of running, told her this was genuine. "I need to see him," Beatrice said. "I need to make this right." She found Vincent at the stable, exactly where Mrs. Chen said he would be. The building smelled of hay and horses, familiar scents that reminded her of her father's ranch, of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else now. Vincent was brushing down a chestnut stallion, his movements rhythmic and soothing. He looked up when she entered, surprise crossing his face. "You should be resting," he said. "You should be sleeping in your own bed," Beatrice countered. "Mrs. Chen told me what you did." Vincent returned his attention to the horse, continuing his work. "It is just a bed." "No, it is not. Not to me. You do not understand what it meant, what it means to sleep in a real bed again." Her voice cracked slightly on the last words. "I cannot take your room. It is not right. You needed it more than I did." His tone was matter-of-fact, like they were discussing the weather. "I have slept in worse places than a stable floor. I will survive a few nights until we figure something else out." "A few nights? I cannot afford to rent a room for even one night, much less several. I have no money, no job, nothing." The admission cost her pride, but she had learned that pride was a luxury she could not afford. Vincent set down the brush and turned to face her fully. "Then we will find you work. Murphy's is a growing town. There are opportunities. Mrs. Patterson at the dress shop might need help. The hotel is always looking for maids. Or if you can cook, the restaurant owner has been complaining about needing another person in the kitchen." "Why are you helping me?" The question burst out of her, raw and confused. "You do not know me. I could be anyone. I could be dangerous." Something shifted in his expression, a shadow passing behind his eyes. "A year ago I was in a bad place. Broke, injured, no prospects. A man in a town called Angel's Camp took me in, gave me work, asked no questions. He just helped because that is what decent people do. I figure it is my turn to pay that forward. I could be running from the law. I could have done something terrible." "Did you?" he asked simply. "No, but you have only my word on that. Then I will trust your word." He said it like it was the easiest thing in the world, like trust was something to be given freely instead of earned through blood and sacrifice. Beatrice felt something crack inside her chest, some hard shell she had built around herself to survive. "My father and brother were killed by claim jumpers. They wanted our land for the gold deposits. When my family would not sell, they killed them and burned our ranch. I ran because the men who did it have connections, and I knew if I stayed, I would be next. I have been running for a year, sleeping rough, stealing food when I had to, doing whatever it took to survive. That is who I am. That is what I have become." The words hung in the air between them, and she waited for Vincent's expression to change, for him to realize she was not worth his kindness. But he just nodded slowly. "That sounds like hell. I am sorry you had to live through it. You are not going to ask me where this happened, or what the men's names were, or any of the other questions everyone else would ask." "Do you want to tell me those things?" he asked. "No." "Then I will not ask." He picked up another brush and held it out to her. "Do you know how to groom a horse?" The abrupt change of subject threw her. "What? Horse grooming? Do you know how?" There was a hint of something in his eyes, an understanding that she needed to move past the heavy confession, to do something normal and grounding. "Yes. My father taught me." "Good. Help me finish with these two and then we can go find you some dinner. You look like you could use another meal." So Beatrice took the brush and worked alongside Vincent in companionable silence, the rhythmic motion of grooming soothing something jagged inside her. They worked through 3 more horses, and Vincent explained which ones belonged to townspeople and which were being boarded temporarily by travelers. His voice was steady and calm, and slowly, Beatrice felt some of the tightness in her chest begin to ease. Over the next week, a pattern emerged. Beatrice helped Vincent at the stable during the day, learning the business and earning her keep. He insisted on paying her a small wage, which she tried to refuse, until he pointed out that she was doing real work and deserved real compensation. In the evenings, she would return to the boarding house, to the room that still felt like an impossible luxury, while Vincent spread his bedroll on the floor of the stable's office. She tried multiple times to give him back his room, even going so far as to move all her borrowed belongings to the stable herself. But Vincent simply carried everything back to the boarding house and refused to discuss it further. "You need to heal," he said. "Real sleep in a real bed is part of that. I am fine where I am." Beatrice learned the rhythms of Murphy's, a town that existed on the edge of the gold rush boom but had settled into something more stable than the wild mining camps farther north. The people here were building something meant to last. Families, businesses, a community. It was strange and wonderful and terrifying to be part of something stable after a year of constant movement. She also learned about Vincent in small pieces, details revealed casually during long days working side by side. He was 26 years old, from a ranch in Texas originally. His family had died from fever when he was 18, and he had spent the years since then drifting, working wherever he could find it. He was quiet but not cold, careful with his words but generous with his actions. He had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard and made her laugh despite herself, genuine laughter that felt rusty from disuse. What surprised her most was how safe she felt around him. Vincent never pushed, never crowded her space, never made demands or expected anything beyond the work she did at the stable. When she flinched at sudden movements or woke from nightmares that followed her, even to the soft bed in his room, he pretended not to notice, giving her the dignity of her fear without making her explain it. 2 weeks after arriving in Murphy's, Beatrice was cleaning out stalls when she heard raised voices from the front of the stable. She looked up to see 3 men on horseback, dust-covered and road-weary, talking to Vincent. Something about their posture made her nervous, the way they sat their horses like men used to intimidating others. "We are looking for a woman," one of them said, his voice carrying back to where Beatrice stood frozen. Mid-20s, blonde hair, probably traveling alone. She is wanted for theft. Beatrice's heart stopped. They had found her. After a year, somehow they had tracked her here. She looked around frantically for an escape route, but the stable only had 2 exits and these men were blocking the main one. "Lots of people come through Murphy's," Vincent said, his tone casual. "Can you be more specific?" "She is dangerous," another man said. "Stole money and valuables from her employer. Probably armed. There is a reward for information leading to her capture." Beatrice waited for Vincent to turn to point her out, to claim whatever reward they were offering. Instead, he shook his head slowly. "Have not seen anyone matching that description, but I will keep an eye out. Who should I contact if I do?" "Sheriff in Auburn. He will get word to us." The first man's eyes scanned the stable, and Beatrice pressed herself back into the shadows of the stall. "You are sure? Maybe check with the other folks in town." "I am sure," Vincent said firmly. "Like I said, I will let you know if I see anything." The men finally rode off, and Beatrice sagged against the stall wall, her legs suddenly weak. Vincent waited until they were well out of sight before walking back to where she stood. His expression was calm, but she could see tension in his shoulders. "That was them," Beatrice whispered. "The men working for the people who killed my family. They are trying to make it look like I am a criminal. I figured as much. Your story about theft did not match up with the way you carry yourself." Vincent leaned against the stall door. "Are you all right? You lied for me. You could have claimed a reward." "I do not want a reward for turning in an innocent woman to men who would probably kill her." "How do you know I am innocent?" The question came out sharper than she intended, but she needed to understand why he kept helping her, kept protecting her. Vincent looked at her for a long moment, his gray-blue eyes steady and serious. "Because I know what guilty looks like, and you are not it. You are scared and traumatized and running for your life, but you are not a criminal. Those men, though, they had the look of hired guns. Bad men doing bad work for bad pay. They will come back. They will ask more questions. Someone will have seen me, maybe. But Murphy's looks after its own, and you have been here 2 weeks. That makes you one of ours." He said it with simple certainty, like it was already decided. "We will figure this out." But the men did come back, 3 days later, asking questions around town. Beatrice stayed hidden in the stable, watching through cracks in the wall as they talked to shopkeepers and residents. To her amazement, everyone claimed not to have seen her. Mrs. Chen, who brought her meals while she hid, told the men she only rented rooms to men. The dress shop owner said she had no new employees. Even the drunk who usually sat outside the saloon when approached swore up and down that no strange women had come to town in weeks. "Why are they protecting me?" Beatrice asked Vincent that evening as they sat in the stable's office, the door barred against intruders. "Because I asked them to," Vincent said. "And because I told them enough of the truth that they understood you needed help. People in towns like this, we depend on each other. It is how we survive. You told them about me. I told them that dangerous men were looking for an innocent woman, and that woman needed our protection. I did not give them your name or your full story. That is yours to tell if you want." Beatrice felt overwhelmed by the enormity of it, an entire town willing to lie for her to protect her, because one man had asked them to. "I do not understand why you are doing this, any of this." Vincent was quiet for a moment, staring at his hands. When he spoke, his voice was low and rough with emotion. "When I was 23, I watched my parents die from fever. I could not help them. I could not save them. I was useless and helpless, and it broke something in me. I spent 2 years drinking and fighting and trying to destroy myself because I could not stand feeling that powerless. Then that man in Angel's camp gave me a chance to be someone better, to help instead of hurt. You stumbled into town looking like death itself was chasing you, and I thought, here is someone I can help. Here is someone I can save, even if I could not save them." The rawness in his confession made her chest ache. She had been so focused on her own trauma, her own survival, that she had not considered Vincent might be carrying his own wounds. "I am not your parents. You do not have to save me to make up for them. I know that. This is not about redemption or guilt. This is about choosing to be the kind of person who helps when they can. You needed help, and I was in a position to give it. It is that simple." But it was not simple at all, Beatrice thought. It was complicated and messy and terrifying, because she was starting to care about this quiet cowboy who gave up his bed and slept on floors and lied to dangerous men without hesitation. Caring about people meant they could be taken away, and she had already lost everyone she loved. She could not bear to lose anyone else. The men finally left Murphy's after 5 days of fruitless searching, riding north toward the mining camps. Vincent said they would probably keep looking, keep asking questions in other towns, but for now Beatrice was safe. Still, the close call had shaken her, reminded her that she could never truly stop running. That night, she stood outside the stable, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. Vincent found her there, as she somehow knew he would. "You could keep running," he said quietly, standing beside her but not touching. "Head to San Francisco or Sacramento, lose yourself in a big city where 3 men asking questions would not matter." "Is that what you think I should do?" She kept her eyes on the horizon, afraid to look at him. "No. I think you should stay here and build a life and stop running, but it has to be your choice. What if they come back? What if they figure out everyone is lying? Then we will deal with it together. You are not alone anymore, Beatrice. You do not have to keep fighting by yourself." She turned to look at him then, this man who had shown her more kindness in 2 weeks than she had experienced in the entire previous year. He stood there in the fading light, strong and steady and absolutely genuine, and she felt something shift inside her. It was not love, not yet, but it was the beginning of something that could become love if she was brave enough to let it. "Thank you," she said softly, "for the bed, for lying to those men, for everything. You do not have to thank me." "Yes, I do. You gave up your bed, Vincent. You have been sleeping on a hard floor for 2 weeks because you thought I needed comfort more than you did. That means something. It means everything. A faint smile crossed his face. It is just a bed. Stop saying that. We both know it is more than just a bed. She took a breath, gathering her courage. Come back to the boarding house. Mrs. Chen has a different room available now, I already asked. It is smaller, but it has a bed. A real bed. You should not have to sleep on the floor anymore. What about you? He asked carefully. I will take the new room. You should have your room back. Vincent shook his head. Keep my room. It is bigger and more comfortable. I will take the small one. They argued about it for 10 minutes, Beatrice insisting she could not continue to displace him, Vincent equally insistent that she needed the better room to continue healing. Finally, Mrs. Chen herself settled the argument by pointing out that both rooms cost the same, so they should both just pay for their own rooms and stop being stubborn fools about it. That night, Beatrice lay in her bed, no longer Vincent's bed but her own, paid for with the wages she had earned. It felt different somehow, like a step toward reclaiming her life instead of just surviving. Down the hall, she knew Vincent was finally sleeping in a real bed again, instead of on the hard floor of the stable. The thought made her smile in the darkness. The weeks that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Beatrice continued working at the stable, discovering she had a talent for training horses that Vincent eagerly encouraged. She started taking on more responsibilities, working with difficult animals that others had given up on, using patience and gentleness to win their trust. It felt meaningful, helping these scared and skittish creatures learn to feel safe again. She understood them in a way she had not before her own year of running. Vincent watched her work with quiet appreciation, and slowly, carefully, they began to spend time together beyond the stable. He walked her back to the boarding house in the evenings, and they would sit on the porch talking until the stars came out. He told her about growing up in Texas, about learning to rope cattle before he could properly read, about his mother's laugh and his father's terrible singing. She told him about her own family in smaller pieces, memories that hurt less than they used to. She did not talk about the men who killed them. That wound was still too raw, too fresh. But she talked about her father teaching her to ride, about her brother's terrible sense of humor, about the ranch she had loved before it became her prison of grief. And Vincent listened with his whole attention, never rushing her, never asking for more than she was ready to give. One evening in late September, as the heat of summer began to fade into the crispness of autumn, they rode out to a spot Vincent knew overlooking a valley. The grass was golden in the slanting light, and oak trees dotted the hillside like sentinels. It was beautiful and peaceful, and Beatrice felt something in her chest loosen. I have not felt safe in so long, she said quietly. I had forgotten what it felt like. Vincent sat beside her on the hillside, their horses grazing nearby. You are safe now. Those men have not come back. You have work and friends and a place to live. You can start to build something here. What if I do not remember how? What if I am too broken to build a normal life? He turned to look at her, his expression serious. You are not broken. You are healing. There is a difference. And healing takes time. You do not have to figure everything out right now. When did you get so wise? She asked, trying to lighten the mood. I am not wise. I am just a cowboy who is decent with horses and terrible at cards. The corner of his mouth quirked up. But I do know something about healing. It took me 2 years to stop wanting to drink myself to death after my parents died. 2 years of bad decisions and worse company before I finally started to put myself back together. So I know it is possible. I know you can survive the trauma and come out the other side. Beatrice studied his profile, the strong line of his jaw, the way his hair curled slightly at his collar, the calluses on his hands from years of hard work. She thought about how he had given her his bed without hesitation, had protected her from dangerous men, had offered her safety and kindness and respect without asking for anything in return. "Can I tell you something?" she asked, always. "I think I am starting to care about you. More than just gratitude, more than friendship." The admission terrified her, but she forced herself to say it anyway. "And that scares me because everyone I have cared about has been taken away." Vincent was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was gentle. "I am scared too. I have spent 3 years keeping people at a distance because it felt safer than risking caring about someone again. But then you walked into town looking like you were about to fall over, and something in me just knew that you were important. Knew that I wanted to help you, protect you, know you. And that terrified me because I had promised myself I would not let anyone matter that much again." "So what do we do?" Beatrice asked. "I think we stop being scared. Or maybe we stay scared but do it anyway." "Because I care about you too, Beatrice. More than I probably should after such a short time, but I do. And I am tired of letting fear make my decisions." She reached out and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. His hand was warm and solid and real. "I am tired of running," she said. "I am tired of being alone. I am tired of pretending I do not need anyone." "Then stop running. Stop being alone. I am right here and I am not going anywhere." Beatrice turned to fully face him, searching his eyes for any hint of doubt or deception. She found only honesty and warmth and something that made her heart beat faster. "Vincent, yes, I think I would like you to kiss me." A slow smile spread across his face, transforming it from handsome to devastating. "I think I would like that too." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to change her mind to pull away. But Beatrice did not pull away. She met him halfway, and when their lips touched, it felt like coming home. The kiss was gentle and sweet and full of promise, and when they finally broke apart, she was smiling for real, the kind of smile that came from genuine happiness instead of politeness. "That was nice," she said, feeling slightly breathless. "It was very nice," Vincent agreed. "Can I do it again?" "I think that would be acceptable." The second kiss was less tentative, more confident, and it sent warmth flooding through her entire body. They stayed on that hillside until the sun set, and the stars emerged, talking and kissing and slowly letting down the walls they had both built around their hearts. Over the following months, their relationship deepened in small increments and large leaps. Vincent courted her properly, with Sunday picnics and evening walks and small gifts that showed he paid attention to what she liked. He brought her books from the general store because she mentioned missing reading. He bought her a new pair of boots because hers were wearing through. He never pushed for more than she was ready to give, content to let things develop at her pace. Beatrice had not realized how much she needed that patience, that respect for her boundaries. She had spent a year being afraid, being hunted, being alone. Learning to trust again, to be vulnerable again, was harder than she had expected. But Vincent made it easier by being consistently, reliably himself. Honest and kind and strong without being overbearing. By December, when the first snows dusted the hills around Murphy's, Beatrice realized she was in love with him. Completely, terrifyingly in love. It happened gradually, then all at once, like a horse that goes from trotting to galloping in a single stride. She loved the way he hummed while he worked. She loved how gentle he was with the animals. She loved his quiet humor and his steady presence, and the way he looked at her like she was something precious. She told him on Christmas Eve, after they returned from a carol service at the small church. They stood on the porch of the boarding house, snow falling gently around them, and she took his hands in hers. "I love you," she said simply. "I know it has only been 4 months and maybe that is too soon, but I do. I love you, Vincent Wolfe." His face split into a grin that was pure joy. "Thank God. I've been in love with you since October and it has been killing me not to say it. I love you too, Beatrice. So much." He kissed her then, deep and thorough, and Beatrice felt the last of her walls crumble. She was done running. She was done being afraid. This was home. He was home. They were married in February of 1879, in a simple ceremony at the church with the whole town in attendance. Beatrice wore a dress Mrs. Chen had sewn especially for the occasion, pale blue with delicate embroidery, and Vincent wore his best suit, brushed clean and pressed for the occasion. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and Vincent kissed her in front of God and everyone, Beatrice felt a happiness so complete it almost hurt. They moved into a small house on the edge of town, a 2-bedroom cabin that Vincent had been fixing up in secret for months. It had a real kitchen and a sitting room and a bedroom with a large bed that Vincent carried over the threshold with exaggerated ceremony, making Beatrice laugh. "Remember when you gave up your bed for me?" she asked that night as they lay tangled together, finally and completely husband and wife. "How could I forget? You stumbled into town looking half dead, and I took one look at you and knew my life was about to change. Did you know you would fall in love with me?" "No, but I hoped." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "I hoped I might be lucky enough to know you, really know you. And then I hoped you might want to know me too. And then I hoped maybe if I was very fortunate you might love me back. Every hope came true." "I am the lucky one," Beatrice insisted. "You saved me, Vincent. In every way a person can be saved." "We saved each other," he corrected gently. "You gave me a reason to be the best version of myself. You reminded me that caring about people, risking your heart, it is worth it even when it is scary." They built a life together in Murphy's, working the stable and training horses and becoming pillars of the small community. Vincent's reputation for fairness and skill grew, and people traveled from surrounding towns to have him work with their difficult animals. Beatrice discovered she had a gift for dealing with traumatized horses, the ones others considered lost causes, and she became known for her patient, gentle methods. In the spring of 1880, Beatrice discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with equal parts joy and terror. She had not thought much about children, too focused on survival and healing, but now that a baby was on the way, she found herself desperately wanting this child, wanting to give them the safe, loving home she had lost. Vincent was overjoyed, immediately becoming protective and attentive to the point of absurdity. He would not let her lift anything heavy or work with the more spirited horses. Beatrice found it simultaneously annoying and endearing. "I am pregnant, not dying," she told him one afternoon when he tried to stop her from mucking out a stall. "I know, but you are carrying our child and I want to take care of you. You always take care of me. Sometimes I think you forget I am capable of taking care of myself too." Vincent had the grace to look sheepish. "You are right. I am being overbearing. It is just the thought of being a father, it makes me want to do everything perfectly, which is foolish because there is no perfect way to do any of this." Beatrice softened, understanding his fear. "We will figure it out together. Just like we have figured out everything else. You do not have to be perfect. You just have to be you." Their son was born in November of 1880 during a cold snap that had everyone huddled around fires. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Beatrice was certain she would not survive it. But Mrs. Chen, who had helped deliver half the babies in Murphy's, was unflappable and competent. And finally, after 18 hours, Beatrice heard the sharp cry of her newborn son. Vincent was allowed into the room then, and the look on his face when he saw his son for the first time was something Beatrice knew she would remember forever. Pure wonder and love, and a fierce protectiveness that made her eyes well with tears. "He is perfect," Vincent whispered, holding the tiny bundle with exaggerated care. "Beatrice, we made a person, a whole perfect person." "What should we name him?" she asked, exhausted but happy. They had discussed names for months, unable to agree. But looking at their son's small, scrunched face, Vincent smiled. "How about Samuel? Samuel Wolfe, after your father?" Beatrice had not expected that, and emotion clogged her throat. Her father's name had been Samuel, and she had not suggested it because she thought it might hurt too much. But Vincent offering it, honoring the man she had lost, made her heart overflow. "Samuel," she repeated. "Yes, that is perfect." The first year of Samuel's life was a blur of sleepless nights and constant worry and moments of transcendent joy. Beatrice had not known it was possible to love something as much as she loved her son, this tiny person who depended on her completely. And watching Vincent as a father, seeing his gentleness and patience and absolute devotion, made her fall in love with him all over again. They had found help for the stable, hiring a young man named Tom who was eager to learn and willing to work hard. It allowed Vincent and Beatrice to focus more on their growing family while still maintaining the business they had built together. Samuel grew into a bright, curious toddler with his mother's green eyes and his father's easy smile. He loved horses, naturally, and spent hours at the stable watching his parents work, asking endless questions in his high, piping voice. In 1882, Beatrice became pregnant again, and their daughter was born the following spring. They named her Rose, for the wild roses that grew on the hillside where Vincent had first kissed Beatrice. Rose was different from Samuel, quieter and more thoughtful, with her father's gray-blue eyes and a stubborn streak a mile wide. Life in Murphy's continued peacefully. The town grew slowly but steadily, and Vincent and Beatrice's stable became known as one of the best in the region. They trained horses for ranchers and travelers, broke wild mustangs with patience instead of force, and rehabilitated animals that others had given up on. Beatrice never forgot the year she had spent running, sleeping rough, terrified and alone. But the sharp edges of that trauma had softened with time and love and safety. She still had nightmares sometimes, still flinched at sudden loud noises, but Vincent was always there to ground her, to remind her she was safe. They never heard from the men who had been hunting her. Whether they gave up or met bad ends themselves, Beatrice did not know and did not care to find out. That chapter of her life was closed, and she was focused on the life she was building with Vincent and their children. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Vincent surprised her with a trip back to the hillside where he had first kissed her. They left the children with Mrs. Chen and rode out in the early evening, the late summer air warm and golden. "I have been thinking about that night," Vincent said as they sat on the hillside, the same spot where everything had changed. "About how scared we both were, how we almost let fear stop us from admitting how we felt." "I am glad we were brave," Beatrice said, leaning against his shoulder. "Me too. You know what I realized? That night when you first came to town, when I gave you my bed, that was when I started falling for you. I did not know it then, but something in me recognized something in you. Two broken people trying to figure out how to be whole again. Are we whole now?" She asked. Vincent considered the question seriously. "I think we are becoming whole. Healing is not linear. We still have bad days and hard moments. But yes, I think we are more whole together than either of us was alone." "I never thanked you properly for that," Beatrice said. "For giving up your bed, for sleeping on the floor, for taking care of me when I was at my absolute lowest. You thank me at least once a month. I think we are covered." No, I mean it. That single act of kindness changed everything. You saw someone who needed help and you helped, no questions asked, no expectations. You gave me a safe place to sleep for the first time in a year, and that started me on the path to healing, to finding you, to building this life. Everything I have now, everything we have, it started because you were willing to sleep on a hard floor so a stranger could have a soft bed. Vincent turned to face her fully, cupping her face in his hands. I would do it again in a heartbeat, 1,000 times over. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Beatrice Wolfe. You and our children and this life we built. All of it started when you stumbled into town looking like you were about to collapse. And I took one look at you and thought, this woman needs help. This woman needs someone to care. And then I got to know you and I thought, this woman is extraordinary. This woman is strong and brave and beautiful. This woman is going to break my heart or heal it, and either way, I want to know her. You healed mine, Beatrice said softly. My heart was so broken I did not think it could ever be fixed. But you put it back together piece by piece, day by day, with your kindness and patience and love. You taught me it was safe to care again, safe to hope again, safe to live again instead of just survive. They kissed as the sun set, the same golden light that had illuminated them years ago when they were still figuring out what they meant to each other. Now there was no question. They were husband and wife, partners, best friends, parents. They were home for each other in every way that mattered. The years continued to pass in a pleasant blur. Samuel grew tall and serious, with a gift for working with horses that rivaled his mother's. Rose remained quiet but fiercely intelligent, always reading, always asking questions that made the adults think. In 1885, Beatrice and Vincent welcomed another child, a second daughter they named Clara. She was bright and loud and kept everyone on their toes. Vincent joked that Clara had gotten both her parents' stubborn streaks, which meant they were in for trouble when she got older. The stable expanded, and they hired more help to manage the increased business. Vincent's reputation had spread far beyond Murphy's, and people came from as far as San Francisco to have him train their horses. But he never let the success change him. He remained the same honest, hard-working man Beatrice had fallen in love with, just with more silver in his hair and laugh lines around his eyes. Beatrice sometimes thought about how different her life could have been if she had never made it to Murphy's, if Vincent had not been there that day, if he had turned her away instead of helping. The alternate versions of her life, the ones where she kept running or got caught or gave up, they haunted her occasionally. But mostly she focused on gratitude for the life she did have, the one that had seemed impossible during those dark months of running and hiding. She had a family, a home, work she loved, and a husband who adored her. She had healed, not perfectly, but enough to be happy. And that was more than she had ever thought possible when she had stumbled into town all those years ago. On a warm evening in June of 1889, the whole family gathered on the porch of their home, which had been expanded twice to accommodate their growing brood. Samuel was 8 now, Rose 6, and Clara 4. They were watching fireflies emerge as darkness fell, the children shrieking with delight as they tried to catch the glowing insects. Vincent sat beside Beatrice on the porch swing, his arm around her shoulders. "Do you ever think about that first night?" he asked quietly. "When I carried you to the boarding house. Sometimes, I think about how I had given up hope. I thought I was going to die on that road, either from exhaustion or from those men catching up to me. And then there you were, this stranger offering help with no strings attached. I think about how brave you were, how you had survived a year of hell and still kept going. Most people would have given up or broken, but you kept fighting. I did not feel brave. I felt terrified." Bravery is being terrified and doing it anyway. Vincent pressed a kiss to her temple. You know what I remember most? How you looked at that bed, like it was the most valuable thing in the world, and I thought, how long has she been without basic comfort? How long has she been suffering? And I knew I had to help. I could not walk away. I told you I had not slept in a real bed for a year, and you just accepted it. You did not pry or ask questions. You just gave me what I needed most. And you gave me what I needed most, though I did not realize it at the time. What was that? A reason to be more than just a man drifting through life. You gave me purpose. And then you gave me love. And then you gave me a family. Everything good in my life traces back to the day you walked into Murphy's. Beatrice turned to kiss him properly, deep and loving and full of all the emotion she still sometimes struggled to put into words. I love you, she whispered against his lips. Thank you for giving up your bed. Thank you for sleeping on the floor. Thank you for choosing to help a stranger. Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for letting me, Vincent replied. Thank you for staying. Thank you for building this life with me. Thank you for Samuel and Rose and Clara. Thank you for every day I get to wake up next to you. They sat in comfortable silence as the children played, the sounds of their laughter mixing with the chirping of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl. This was home, Beatrice thought. Not the house, though she loved it. Not the town, though it had become precious to her. Home was this, right here. Her family, her husband, the life they had built from nothing but hope and hard work and love. Samuel ran up onto the porch out of breath and grinning. Papa, I caught 3 fireflies. Want to see? Vincent stood, ruffling his son's hair. Show me. And then we need to let them go before bed. Can we catch more tomorrow? Absolutely. It is summer. We have plenty of firefly catching ahead of us. Rose joined them, holding Clara's hand, her jar of fireflies glowing gently. Mama, do fireflies sleep? I think they rest during the day, Beatrice said. Like you should be doing soon. But it is still light out, Clara protested in her high voice. It is getting dark. Another 30 minutes and then bedtime. The children groaned but accepted this, running back into the yard to make the most of their remaining time. Vincent returned to the porch swing, and Beatrice leaned into him, feeling content in a way that still sometimes surprised her. We did good, Vincent said softly. We did. We really did. The years continued their steady march forward. The children grew, the business prospered, and Vincent and Beatrice's love deepened with each passing season. They had their challenges, of course. Drought years that made money tight. Illnesses that scared them. The normal struggles of raising children and managing a business and maintaining a marriage. But they faced everything together, the way they had from the beginning. Samuel eventually took over much of the day-to-day running of the stable, showing the same patience and skill his parents had. Rose surprised everyone by becoming a teacher, moving to the nearby town of Angels Camp to run their small school. Clara, true to her wild nature, became a trick rider, performing at shows and fairs throughout California. Vincent and Beatrice grew older together, silver-haired and weathered but still deeply in love. They took long walks in the evenings, reminiscing about their life together, marveling at how far they had come from that August day in 1878 when a desperate woman and a kind cowboy had found each other. Do you know what I realized? Beatrice said one evening as they sat on their porch watching another sunset. They were in their 50s now, faces lined with age and experience but eyes still bright. What is that? Vincent asked, his voice raspier than it used to be but still warm. That night when I arrived, when I said I had not slept in a real bed for a year, I thought a bed was just a bed, a place to sleep. But it was so much more than that. It represented safety, comfort, stability, all the things I had lost, and you gave me that without hesitation. You gave me the first step back toward being human again instead of just an animal running and hiding." "It was just a bed," Vincent said, teasing her the way he had back then. "Stop saying that," Beatrice laughed, swatting his arm. "We both know it was never just a bed. It was a kindness that changed my life. It was the beginning of everything we built together." "All right, you are right. It was not just a bed. It was the smartest thing I ever did, giving it up, because it brought you into my life properly. If I had not, maybe you would have left. Maybe you would have kept running, and I would have missed out on the best 36 years of my life." 36 years, Beatrice repeated, marveling at it. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday that I stumbled into town. Other times it feels like I have always been here with you." "You have always been here," Vincent said seriously. "Maybe not physically, but I think I was waiting for you my whole life. I just did not know it until I saw you." They sat together as the stars emerged, holding hands like they had done thousands of times before. Their children were grown and building their own lives. Their grandchildren, 4 so far with more likely on the way, visited regularly, filling the house with noise and laughter. The stable was thriving under Samuel's management. Their life was not perfect, but it was good. It was full. It was enough. "Do you have any regrets?" Beatrice asked suddenly. Vincent thought about it seriously before answering. "I regret that you had to suffer so much before finding peace. I regret that I could not save you sooner, protect you from that year of hell. But do I regret anything about our life together? Not a single moment. Not even the hard times, because they taught us things and made us stronger. No regrets about us. But I wish I could tell my younger self, the girl who ran for a year thinking she would never be safe again, that she would find you, that she would find home, that the running would end and the healing would begin. I wish I could tell her to hold on just a little longer because happiness was waiting. She did hold on. She survived. She made it to Murphy's and to me. She was strong enough to accept help when it was offered and brave enough to rebuild. You give that girl from the past too little credit." "Maybe," Beatrice smiled. "But that girl became who she was because of you, because you saw her at her worst and still treated her with kindness and respect. You showed her what love could look like when it was healthy and real." "We saved each other," Vincent said, repeating what he had told her on their wedding night so many years ago. "You needed someone to offer safety. I needed someone to care for. We both needed someone to love who would love us back just as fiercely. We found that in each other." As night fully descended and the temperature dropped, they moved inside their home, the house that had grown and changed with their family over the decades. Photographs lined the walls, documenting their life together. Their wedding photo, young and hopeful. Pictures of their children at various ages. Grandchildren making silly faces at the camera. They prepared for bed together. A comfortable routine developed over decades of marriage. Vincent still insisted on checking all the doors and windows, making sure everything was secure. Beatrice still read for a few minutes before sleeping, a habit from childhood she had reclaimed. As they lay in bed, Vincent reached for her hand. "I love you, Beatrice Wolfe. More today than yesterday and less than tomorrow. I love you too. Thank you for giving up your bed for me all those years ago. Thank you for being the man who chooses kindness. Thank you for this life." "Best decision I ever made," Vincent murmured, already half asleep. "Giving up that bed, sleeping on the floor, worth it for everything that came after." Beatrice smiled in the darkness, comfortable and warm and safe. She thought about the woman she had been, desperate and exhausted, who had not slept in a real bed for a year. That woman could never have imagined this future, this happiness, this profound sense of belonging. But that desperate woman had taken a chance on a kind stranger, had accepted help when every instinct screamed to stay isolated, had chosen to stop running and start healing. And that choice, combined with Vincent's choice to help without asking for anything in return, had created this beautiful life. She drifted off to sleep in the arms of the man she loved, in their comfortable bed in the home they had built together, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived. No more running, no more fear, just love and peace and the profound contentment of knowing she was exactly where she belonged. The story of how they found each other became a favorite tale to tell their grandchildren. The children would sit wide-eyed as Beatrice described her year of running, making it sound like an adventure rather than the trauma it had been. And then Vincent would explain how he had given up his bed for a stranger, and the children would declare him a hero. Not a hero, Vincent always corrected gently. Just a man who tried to do the right thing, and got very, very lucky that the right thing led him to your grandmother. The years passed peacefully. Vincent and Beatrice watched their children thrive and their grandchildren grow. They celebrated anniversaries and birthdays and holidays, surrounded by family. They worked in the stable when their bodies allowed, training horses and teaching the younger generation their methods. On their 50th wedding anniversary in 1929, the whole family gathered for a celebration. Samuel and his wife, Rose and her husband, Clara and her partner, along with 8 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren who had arrived in recent years. The house was full of noise and laughter and love. Someone asked Vincent to tell the story of how he and Beatrice met, and he obliged, as he always did. But this time, when he got to the part about giving up his bed, Beatrice interrupted. "What Vincent never tells you," she said, her voice still strong despite her 73 years, "is that he did not just give up his bed once. He slept on the floor of that stable for 2 weeks before I would let him take a different room. 2 weeks of hard ground and horse smell because he thought I needed comfort more than he did. That is the kind of man your grandfather is. The kind who sacrifices his own comfort for others without hesitation or complaint." "It was not a sacrifice," Vincent protested, as he always did. "It was a privilege to help you, a privilege that led to 50 years of marriage and this beautiful family. I would sleep on that floor for 50 years if it meant getting even 1 year with you." The family awed and applauded, and Beatrice felt tears prick her eyes. After 50 years of marriage, Vincent could still make her cry with his sincerity and love. Later, after the party had wound down and most of the family had left, Beatrice and Vincent sat together on their porch. It was the same porch where they had watched their young children chase fireflies decades ago, though some of the boards had been replaced and the swing had been rebuilt twice. 50 years, Beatrice marveled. "That is half a century, Vincent, half a century of marriage." "Best 50 years of my life," Vincent said. "Though I will admit these old bones would not enjoy sleeping on a stable floor anymore." Beatrice laughed. "Mine either. We have gotten soft in our old age. Not soft, just well-rested, as we deserve to be." He squeezed her hand. "Do you remember what you said to me? That first day, you said you had not slept in a real bed for a year." "I remember. It was the truest thing I could have told you. I was so exhausted, Vincent, so worn down, and that bed, your bed, it was like a gift from heaven. You gave me a gift too, you know, the gift of being needed, of being useful, of having someone to protect and care for. I had been drifting for so long, and you gave me an anchor, a purpose." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, and closer by, their old dog woofed softly in response. "If you could go back," Vincent asked, "and tell that woman who walked into Murphy's all those years ago one thing, what would it be?" Beatrice considered the question carefully. "I would tell her that the running ends, the fear ends, that she will find safety and love and a home beyond anything she could imagine. that the cowboy who gives up his bed is going to be the love of her life, and that everything she survives, all that pain and trauma, it leads to something beautiful. "That is good," Vincent said. "I would tell my younger self that the exhausted woman he helps is going to change everything. That kindness matters. That love is worth the risk. And that sleeping on a floor for a few weeks is a small price to pay for a lifetime of happiness." As they sat together in the gathering darkness, Beatrice reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought them to this moment. From that desperate August day in 1878 to this peaceful evening in 1929, 51 years of love and growth and building a life together. It had not always been easy, but it had always been worth it. The cowboy who had given up his bed for a stranger had become her husband, her partner, her home. The broken woman who had not slept in a real bed for a year had healed enough to build a family, a business, a legacy. Together, they had created something beautiful and lasting. And it all started with a simple act of kindness. A cowboy willing to sleep on the floor so a desperate woman could finally rest in safety. That single choice had rippled outward, creating waves of love and family and connection that would echo through generations. Beatrice leaned her head on Vincent's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing, the warmth of his presence beside her. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for the bed, for your kindness, for choosing me every single day for 50 years. "Thank you for letting me," Vincent replied, "for staying, for building this life with me, for being my home the same way I hope I have been yours." "You are," Beatrice assured him. "You have been my home since that first night, my safe harbor, my resting place. Everything good in my life comes from that moment when you decided to help a stranger." They remained on the porch until the cold drove them inside. Two people who had found each other against impossible odds and built something lasting. The house was quiet now, their family gone home to their own lives, but it still held the warmth of their presence, the echo of their laughter. As they settled into bed, the same nightly routine they had performed thousands of times, Vincent pulled Beatrice close. "I love you," he said. "Today and always." "I love you too," Beatrice replied. "My cowboy who gave up his bed, my hero, my home." They drifted off to sleep together as they had for 50 years, peaceful and content in the knowledge that they had built something true and lasting. The woman who had not slept in a real bed for a year now, slept every night in the arms of the man who had first offered her that gift of safety and comfort. And the cowboy who had slept on the floor never regretted a single moment of discomfort, because it had led him to the love of his life and a happiness beyond measure. Together, they had created a love story that would be told and retold through generations, a testament to the power of kindness, the possibility of healing, and the transformative nature of love. Their story proved that sometimes the simplest acts of compassion could change everything. That choosing to help, to care, to sacrifice your own comfort for another's need, could ripple outward in ways impossible to predict. The cowboy's decision to give up his bed had saved more than just a desperate woman's body. It had saved her spirit, her hope, her ability to trust and love again. And in saving her, he had saved himself, finding the purpose and connection he had been seeking without knowing it. Two broken people had found each other and become whole through love and time and the steady work of building a life together. As the night deepened around them, Beatrice and Vincent slept peacefully, their story complete, their love enduring, their legacy alive in the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who carried forward the lessons they had learned. That kindness matters. That love heals. That home is not a place, but the people who choose to stay, to fight, to build something beautiful together despite all the obstacles. The woman who had not slept in a real bed for a year now rested in ultimate peace and safety. The cowboy who had given up his bed had gained everything that truly mattered. And together, they had proven that even in the harsh reality of the Wild West, love could flourish, heal, and create miracles that lasted generations. Their story was one of survival and healing, of taking chances and choosing hope, of simple kindness that sparked profound love. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of finding the right person at the right time. And it all began with a cowboy, a bed, and the decision that another person's comfort mattered more than his own, a decision that changed two lives forever and created a love that would endure through time, hardship, and all the challenges life could bring.